dear friends, how are you? How was your weekend? I'm Mark Golub. We had a beautiful weekend, beautiful weather in the East this past weekend. I don't know about you, but I always feel better in beautiful weather. Give me a sunny day any day. And it wasn't too hot. I'm teaching each weekend on Zoom with my chavarot. And we have people joining us from Florida, from California. And it's getting hot in Florida, over 90. And it's been hot in California, not so hot this past weekend. But many people are venturing out into the beautiful weather. Almost everyone is wearing a mask and maintaining social distancing. My wife Ruth and I went out for a drive. We headed over to the beach just to look at the water. And there were so many people out, but none were close together, just some kids on bicycles. Other than that, families together, wearing masks, but everyone else a good distance apart from anyone else. And this week, some states are opening up a bit. Beaches are being reopened in Florida. Some establishments are opening up in Georgia, states like Georgia, with some pretty strict guidelines, but they're opening up. And it's raising the question, how long into the summer will the general lockdown last? And obviously the answer will be, for different regions, different lengths of time. And of course, for those of us in a more vulnerable demographic, we're still not going anywhere. But each day things change and move on. And there's real reason for everyone to be a bit more optimistic about our future. Also, I don't know if you see the global statistics and where the United States ranks among the developed nations of the world. Virtually every European nation, with the exception of Greece, has a higher death rate than the United States. Here's a list of the top 10. Belgium ranks number 1 in the number of deaths per million in population, with 686. Then Spain, with 540. Italy is now third, the third worst in death rate, with 477 per million. Great Britain has 427 deaths per million people. France, 371. The Netherlands, 293. Ireland, 268. Then Sweden, which has been in the storm of controversy because of its refusal to impose a national lockdown. They have 263 deaths per million. Then Switzerland at 206. And then the United States with 206 deaths per million Americans. The largest deaths occurring, of course, in the city of New York. Canada, by the way, has done significantly better than the U.S. with only 102 deaths per million. And Germany has fewer than 100 deaths per million. But it's pretty dramatic to see how all of the Western European nations, except Greece, have a higher death rate than the United States. And Israel, they're in a different league, with only 26 deaths per million people. So this pandemic is far from over. There are a lot of challenges facing this country and the globe, but in many ways, things are beginning to look like we've turned a corner, and we'll now just have to see. Well, as we've all seen, people everywhere are doing creative things online to bring cheer and hope to all of us during this pandemic. And we've highlighted a number of them for you on JBS. Recently, I received a very lovely and wonderful new music video based on the Mi Shehbayrach prayer, the traditional Jewish prayer for those who are ill and in need of healing. It was composed and performed by a very talented woman named Bracha Goffer, who also happens to be a profoundly committed Jew and a very, very lovely person. I'd like you to hear now Bracha Goffer's Mi Shehbayrach.
מי שבירך אבותינו ואימותינו, הוא יברך, הוא יברך את כל קהילות ישראל. כי אל מלך רופא רפאנו ונרפא, הושיענו וניוושע. נאמן ורחמן אתה, Blessed are those who are in need, with refuah shlema, refuah shlema.
That's Mi Shehbayrach by Bracha Goffer, and I'm so pleased to have Bracha with us now from Florida. Bracha, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure and privilege.
Before we talk about your beautiful rendition of Mi Shehbayrach, Bracha, tell us something about yourself, something about your personal journey. How did you ultimately come to be in America?
Well, I grew up in Israel, in Yerushalayim, no less. And I actually totally unplanned. I was supposed to go to the army. I was finishing at the university because my brother was at the army at that time, and they didn't take two siblings at the same time, so I could go to school. And I just had a personal trip for 3 weeks with a return ticket and a tiny valise to Canada. And I ended up getting married.
You came for 3 weeks to where?
To Canada, Montreal.
And you met the man who became your husband there?
On my goodbye party on the way going back to Israel, and he did not let me go back.
So you go from Israel to Canada, you get married, then ultimately you come to the United States, and you settle in Florida, correct?
Yes.
How long have you been in Florida, Bracha?
25 years.
Wow. Wow. By the way, do I understand you do some teaching in Florida?
I have been doing extensive teaching, but especially performing, because I needed to create a new life for myself from scratch. So I was teaching in different places part-time. and performing the other time.
And what are the type of things you teach?
My favorite subject of the heart. I teach quite a few different things, but mostly through Torah, the secrets in the Hebrew letters, because I wanted to know why Hebrew is the holy language. As an Israeli who knew Hebrew from childhood, and my specialty at the university, in the Hebrew University, was grammar, Hebrew grammar. So I wanted to discover what makes Hebrew a holy language.
That's lovely. That is lovely. But you've always loved the language, the Hebrew language, haven't you?
Yes, but I was never really quite aware. It's the awareness that sets in, I think, with age. I became aware of its beauty. And all my connections to the land, to Torah, and to Judaism happened much later. I was busy with children, with the household, etc. So
By the way, as you were growing up in Jerusalem, what kind of Jewish home did your parents have for you and your brother?
Well, I grew up with a mother who raised me alone since I was a baby, me and my brother. And our father left us at a very young age. He brought us to Israel as refugees from the Nazis and the Russians. And we ended up in the middle of the War of Independence. And it was working 7 days a week when I wasn't in school. And all the years, when I came back from school, I did my homework in the store that we had. And it was working together with my mom.
Bracha, I feel you have a love of Yiddishkeit, Jewishness. Am I right?
Absolutely. And the language too.
Okay, we'll get to the language separately. I want you to talk for one moment how you feel about your Jewish identity and how you feel about the state of Israel. But begin by talking about what does Jewish mean to you?
Well, it's my identity first and foremost, and it's an identity that I learned to be incredibly proud of. In Israel, it was the Israeli in me because there was no Jewish life when you work 7 days a week, including Shabbat, and there was a lot of scrutiny because of it. But it was the only time that it created enough revenues to exist. So it is the connection of the past, the legacy of the future, and everything in between. I so admire and identify with characters in the Torah. And I believe Judaism and Torah is one and the same. I don't see how one goes without the other. And the more I study and the more I teach about it and get involved with it, I'm mesmerized by it on a daily basis.
And what about Israel? How do you feel about Israel? You live in America now. How do you feel about Israel?
I am so proud of Israel. And in my heart, I am an Israeli. The thing is that, you end up not belonging anywhere. Because I don't have my Israeli passport anymore. You have Canadian citizenship and American citizenship. You can't have that many citizenship. But in my heart, I'm Israeli, and I love the country. I'm so proud of the achievements, and I'm so hurt by the negativity that is directed from the Jewish community against Israel. The others, I understand. It's a long history. But when it comes from Jewish people in the United States and in Canada and Europe, I just feel that it is so misdirected. I think the Israeli army, I've written some songs about the Tzahal and the Jewish Defense League. And I really feel that they are the most moral in the world. If they are not moral, just give me the country that is more moral.
By the way, why do you think it is? You've had a lot of contact. You've been here for decades now. But you've had a lot of contact with American Jewry. Why do you think it is there is within the American Jewish community this element that just continues to be as critical as they can possibly be about the state of Israel and seem to lack appreciation for the fact that, number one, Israel is at war. It's at war every single day. And second, so much of what is said about Israel is patently untrue. Where do you think it comes from that so many American Jews fall into being critical of Israel?
I believe it's the gap. There is tremendous gap in the lifestyle and the understanding of the actual reality. I have lived both. And when I hear criticism about how Israel is hating or the Palestinians and how they mistreat the Arabs, I mean, this is so unfair. This is so wrong. It's just, you have to protect yourself. Whatever Israel does that the world calls violent is because of circumstances of self-protection of our children. And I feel that it's the fact that a father who goes in the morning to serve in the army, and you never know if you'll see them again. And what Israeli children are not thinking about on vacation, where to go or when there's a birthday, the bicycle that they'll get or the vacation they'll go to. It's always about protecting the land, about the pride of sending our children as a sacrifice practically to protect the parents and the country, because we don't have another country. And it's the power, I think, that Israel got and the world does not appreciate, that from helplessness we became so successful, so amazingly successful.
Amazing.
Yeah, Israel is a miracle.
It is a miracle. So Bracha, what motivated you to begin writing melodies of your own and singing them, performing them for Jewish prayers and Jewish texts?
Well, this came out, I've always written music for the need of the class that I was in Canada, and I did a lot of conventions for teachers in Canada. But when I started discovering Judaism, and it started from scratch with my sons, when they were born, I felt responsible to introduce Judaism to them. I was Israeli and Jewish because I was in Israel, but for them, it was entirely a different kind of situation. So the more I discovered, the more I was drawn to memorialize ideas and words that touched my heart. Because I remember better through music. I mean, it's just a physical...
We all do. We all do. You have talked to me, by the way, about what you feel would be very helpful to American Jews if they had a greater appreciation for Hebrew. Talk to me a little bit about that now.
I believe wholeheartedly that anything that will bridge that gap between America and Israel would be helpful. And I know from my experience when I went on a klezmer show where I was the singer in South America, and I had to learn Portuguese in São Paulo, Brazil. And I just, as the MC, I wanted to say something in Portuguese. I got a standing ovation just for trying to say one sentence in Portuguese correctly. Mm-hmm. Okay, they realized that's all I know. I never heard Portuguese before in Florida. So I feel that when you don't speak the Hebrew language in a distorted way, we call it distorted in Israel. When we hear the Bokau Tov, a kind of a pronunciation, immediately, you feel these people don't care about Hebrew.
So it's important, you believe, for American Jews to pronounce Hebrew in a more authentic way.
The way Israel does, there's a modern Hebrew for the past 72 years that every child is speaking, and in every park and in every bank, everywhere you speak modern Hebrew. And I think it's about 10 million people by now, including others in the world that left Israel to other countries. And there is no reason not to learn the one Hebrew language that is based on the Talmud and on the Torah, and because Eliezer ben Yehuda was a very educated man on Jewish sources, on Jewish tradition. And I know for a fact that some words that he adjusted, words from the Torah that he adjusted for everyday life. That means he was very aware of keeping it authentic and close to the roots.
So, Bracha, how did you come to write a melody to the Mi Shehbayrach?
Well, I feel that there is so much in every prayer and every word in Hebrew in the Torah that if there is the awareness about the meaning, rather than doing it by rote, what they do in synagogues, all the synagogues, I went to a few synagogues, it was always by rote that people said things, and they said it quickly, and I don't think that they were mindful of what they're saying. And you can tell by the tone of voice, So I feel that it's so important that that you keep the authenticity, let's put it this way, of the music that will describe the power of the world, the words. And if the few points, for instance, if you look at Mi Shehbayrach Avotenu, right away you have a connection, ancestral connection to the past and to remembering. And we say the name of the words of the names of the people who are sick out loud. And we know that even the Rambam is talking about the vidui, that you have to ask forgiveness out loud. It is a different feeling to the person who he's asking forgiveness from to say it out loud. So imagine an entire congregation saying your name and keeping you for a moment in mind, away from themselves, maybe. So I find it incredibly powerful.
That is lovely. That is lovely.
Thank you.
So, Bracha, what prompted you to send it to me, JBS?
Well, this was in connection with the coronavirus. I feel that this prayer, like all the wonderful wishes and the things that people come up with to be creative in this situation, to help each other in this isolation, is that feeling. I wanted them to hear the embrace of everybody together, and the song bringing up that feeling of embrace, that feeling of love, that feeling of support and hope that the words actually give when you...
Again, lovely. That explains why you wrote it. It doesn't explain why you sent it to me.
Well, I wanted that. I was hoping that you were going to share it with your audiences and that they would be able to identify with it, because I did write a few words about Corona, but that's not the original words that I added, for the reason. But I put Corona particularly, as you saw, to draw attention for hope and for a fuzzy feeling inside of warmth. That was my way of doing it.
I am so grateful. By the way, do you watch JBS?
All the time. I'm a number one fan.
That's lovely.
It is the plurality there. I mean, you get an idea about any kind of Jew wherever they are in the world, and there is no criticism, and there is acceptance and an embrace from you, and there is that warmth, even when you don't agree with them. I find it so wonderful to learn from. I'm learning a lot from you, but I'll never be able to to mimic you because even though I really want to. It's very, very beautiful to watch, especially your interviews.
Well, you're very, very kind. You've been wonderful to send me your music. I want you to continue to do so. And people will now know if they see Bracha Goffer on the screen, you're the person who did the creativity, and you sing beautifully. So, Toda Rabba, thank you so very, very much. I wish you kol tuv v'hatzlacha. I wish you to be safe and be well, and we'll all come out of this thing. And then one day after that, you and I will get to see each other in person. I'm looking forward to that very, very much.
Me too. I really, really thank you so much for having me. And it's truly a privilege and an honor.
Bracha Goffer, a very special lady. So here are the rough coronavirus numbers for May 4th. Here in the United States, around 1.2 million Americans are known to have the virus, with close to 70,000 deaths. But the recovery rate remains at 14%. Meanwhile, in Israel, there are some 16,000 diagnosed cases of the virus, with the recovery rate in Israel going up another 7%, so that 60% of the number of diagnosed cases in Israel are returning to health, while the total number of deaths in Israel is only 234 and is maintaining at 1%. And of course, I've been inviting you to send me any Mazel Tov or Mi Shehbayrach name or Yortzeit you'd like me to mention on JBS. And for Yom HaAtzmaut, Cecilia and Ruben Margulis are wishing their grandson a Mazal Tov and honoring him. His name is Yaakov Verschleiser. He's currently serving in the Golani Brigade of the Israel Defense Forces as a lone soldier, which means he's someone from a diaspora country with no family in Israel who's joined the IDF. As Ruben wrote me, Yaakov makes all of us proud. Am Yisrael Chai. To send me any name you'd like me to mention, just email me at jbscommunity@jbstv.org. And if you wish to be in touch with me personally, my email address is very simple, rabbigolub@jbstv.org. And so until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Stay safe and be well, my friends.